Back with the WMAY morning news feed, 7:11, and we've got some rain in the forecasts, but coming up next year, it's going to be a pretty contentious political season with the statewide elections. You've got governor, you've also got other statewide offices like Secretary of State. And while the Democrats have, I've lost count now, 5, 6, maybe 7 different candidates vying for the Democratic Party's nomination for Secretary of State, not as many on the Republican side. We chat now with one of those, State Representative Dan Brady. He was exploring the opportunity of running for Secretary of State over the summer. He made the announcement not too long ago. Glad he could join us here on the WMAY morning news feed. Representative, thanks for taking time. I'm Greg Bishop, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this in the weeks and months ahead. But how you doing out there? Did you have a good Christmas?
I did, Greg. Nice to be with you this morning, and hello to all your listeners. I had a very nice Christmas in the Brady family here in Bloomington, where we're from, and looking forward to a new year that will have lots of challenges, no doubt, much like 2021 did. But it's great to be with you.
Well, and as 2020 did, and seems that we're in this perpetual state of concern over COVID-19. We'll talk a bit about what that means for when you guys come back to the General Assembly. January 4th is when the schedule start is. So we'll talk about some of that coming up. But let's get into Secretary of State. Jesse White, longtime Democrat Secretary of State. He's been in there for more than 20 years. He said that he's not running again, and that's opened the field up here. There's a lot of Democrats vying for the job, but of course there's a primary in June. I know of one other announced Republican, William Kelly, that's announced, but what makes you qualified for the position of Secretary of State?
Well, first off, I think what makes me qualified is my interaction with working from the legislative standpoint with the office. Back to my first elected office as McLean County Coroner, I worked with the office on development of protocols regarding organ tissue donation across the state of Illinois, and I pushed through legislation working with the Secretary of State's office regarding first-person consent and also legislation that would allow for 16 and 17-year-olds to be part of the donor registry list with a parental option override that. So the area also in insurance legislation I have advocated for and passed regarding help for senior drivers, all issues and legislative accomplishments that I believe speak well to my interaction with the office. The other is my desire to work and continue to work on distracted driving, obviously for teens, and what we can do to improve the behind the wheel side of teaching for our young people that are about to get their license. And then overall, what are we going to do and how are we going to try and improve not only the technology side of things in the Secretary of State's office, but those things that cause those lines and cause those delays and cause those problems in the DVM facilities across the state of Illinois. And so a wide variety of areas that I've either been involved with or certainly have plans for the improvement of the office. And let's don't forget, Greg, that this office, the Secretary of State's office, probably touches more lives than any other executive office in the state of Illinois. And I've been part of trying to enhance many aspects of the office. And I've worked with Secretary White, and I thank him for his service.
Representative, there's been a lot of talk on the Democrat side about a digital driver's license. Multiple candidates making that one of the pillars of their campaign. Talk about that. Is that something that's in the future for Illinoisans, and should it be mandated or an option?
Well, I think it's an option, number one. Number two, yes, do I think it's part of the future? Potentially, yes. The TSA, though, has not come out fully behind that concept. Now, some other states have taken initiatives to move forward with that. But I think before Illinois would invest, number one, into that, making sure that the TSA and how that's going to work with the interaction of not only the identification side of things, but travels, international travels, and the list goes on. So the jury's still out on that a little bit. But technology obviously is the wave of the future. And what we're doing right now and talking on our our cell phones, is all going to be part of that technology. But with something that really comes down to is how we're going to move the Secretary of State's office more in the not only the digital format, but what are we going to do so that office has technology that, even from the standpoint of some divisions that can't talk to each other on the computer frames that they're on in systems right now. So those are all part of the digital enhancement of what the office needs, and making sure you identify those, set those priorities. It's an office about service, not public policy, and that's what needs to be improved upon.
Now 7:17 on WMAY. It's the morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop. We're talking with State Representative Dan Brady. He is a Republican vying for the party's nomination for Secretary of State after Secretary of State Jesse White announced he's not going to be running for another term, but we've got a primary in June. Representative, it's a large office, big budget, thousands of employees. How do we ensure that we don't see some of the things that have tainted Illinois' history with patronage and different types of those types of operations that really just grows distrust with taxpayers?
Well, there is no doubt that it's a large office. It pushes close to around 4,000 employees. Has numerous divisions, and obviously people think of the driver's license side of things, which is the big responsibility of the Secretary of State's office in the state of Illinois. But there's many other areas the Secretary of State's office is involved with. Just to mention a couple is from the law enforcement side of the Capitol security, the operations of the state capitol, and many other aspects of being the chief record keeper and the chief librarian across the state of Illinois. And so there's many areas, especially from people's lives and businesses, with requirements of the index and the requirements of other areas with business that the Secretary of State's office is responsible for. So yes, large office from the standpoint of employees, and a large office that when you have that issue, you have the issue of what you see for the office and what happens for the office. And I like to say, when it comes to the priorities, the setting priorities for the office, and trying to avoid some of the problems in the past, that you surround yourself with good people, and there's nothing you can't overcome. But looking and setting those priorities, what's going to be our priorities in a Dan Brady administration? That priorities is going to be obviously service or public service, and that's what the office is supposed to do. But you're right, a large amount of employees, and that has potential for problems, and you certainly have to navigate through and work with the unions that are representative of some of those employees. And I think I have a good track record on both sides, not only business but labor. And I certainly will take that message across the state as we work towards the June 28th primary, Greg.
Talking with State Representative Dan Brady on the WMAY morning news feed. So, of course, the primary is coming up in June, the election's in November, so we'll likely connect on that issue coming up in the future. I'm anticipating seeing you guys January 4th here at the Capitol for spring session. It's a truncated session. You guys are in until April 8th. You able to get all the things done that need to get done by then, especially being in the minority party? We're talking the budget and any other priorities that there may be. What do you anticipate happening, and how jam-packed is session going to be in the days that you guys have scheduled?
Well, I think the first thing we'll do when we come back, obviously, is minority spokesman on the Rules Committee in the House. We are going to have to probably update the rules, excuse me, as it pertains to video conferencing and being able to vote electronically, remotely, I should say. Number two, what is the Omicron and COVID-19 going to do to session again, this spring session coming up? What restrictions will be there? There's talk already that committees are going to be virtual, so we'll have to see what happens there after we have an assembly on January the 4th. And so I really think the details will unfold as it pertains to COVID-19 and what we're able to do as we see the cases rise or stabilize, hopefully, drop even more throughout the spring session. But obviously, as you indicated, short session into April, and that means that I think you'll probably see more priority given towards the budget, the operation of the budget, and implementing a budget and a lot of the wish list legislation, if you will, may take a back burner to the priority of trying to make sure we have a budget and stabilize that budget the best we can with the dollars that have come in from the federal government, COVID related, and using those dollars for what they're supposed to. And that's a whole other discussion.
Well, do you think that having the kind of truncated timeline here is going to be good for taxpayers wanting to know what's in the budget? Because we've seen in the past, even with that May 31st deadline, it's always last minute, and 1,000+ page bills dropped within hours before it's voted on and rushed through without much analysis being provided for those who are footing the bill here. Do you pretend that this is good or bad for taxpayers, that we're going to probably have a priority up front with the budget?
Well, I think the priority for the budget is good for the taxpayers. Now, how it unfolds, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm an eternal optimist, I guess you might say. But you're right. It always comes down to the 11th hour, the time I've been in the General Assembly, when there's so much time that you could be utilizing towards the budget. This time, with the session being as short as it is, it might work to the advantage of the people. I certainly hope so. That's what I'll advocate for. That we set our priorities and we go in, we work on and get a budget resolved and get it something resolved and pushed for a vote that doesn't come down to the 11th hour where you see the last minute add-ons and all the things you don't even know what are technically in the budget that you're asked to be voting on. So hopefully that priority in the shorter session will push us in the General Assembly and the majority party to certainly do things from the standpoint of full transparency and set our priorities. And I think I keep saying set our priorities, and if we did more of that, I think we'd certainly have a better end product coming out of Springfield.
State Representative Dan Brady, he's also running for the Republican nomination for Secretary of State. Greatly appreciate you taking this time this morning. We'll see you when you get back down here January 4th, and have a Happy New Year, all right?
Thank you very much, and same to you, Greg, and all your listeners, and we'll see you when we get back to Springfield. In the meantime, everyone have a Happy New Year and be safe out there, and drive safe.
You too. It is the WMAY Morning News Feed, now 7